Uh,
Got it.
Thanks, Brian. So tonight we have the Port Moody Shoreline Great Blue Heron Colony, 2015 to 2022, with Judy Taylor-Atkinson and Jim Atkinson. So thanks very much for you guys for putting this presentation together. I know it was a lot of work in that to do it, and a lot of fun. It's probably a minor part compared to all the volunteer work that you do with the herons and that. So, and I will start out with the land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that the Burke Mountain Naturalists conduct our meetings and activities on the unceded core traditional territory of the Coquitlam First Nation, as well as the shared traditional territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Musqueam, and Squamish First Nations. We thank the people who continue to live on these lands and care for them. So I think we can jump right into Judy and Jim's presentation if they're okay with that.
Yeah, and I'm just going to start sharing my screen.
And Brian, did you have anything to say at all? Are you okay?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Files are minimized. Okay, so we can all. Okay, everybody can see the screen?
Yes.
Good. All right. So we're going to start with some interactive questions and then a short tour through the biology, followed by another tour through the timeline of our colony here in Port Moody, and end up with some videos from our wildlife cameras and iPhone. So please feel free to unmute yourselves and guess what the answers might be to the questions that I'm going to ask. If anyone gets all the right answers, they are going to get a free, all expense paid trip to the heron colony.
Wow.
Something to look forward to.
Fabulous.
Let me put you on full screen here. Oh, there. All right.
Oh, what
So there'll be there's three questions, and we'll see if anybody knows the right answers. And please guess. How are the great blue herons protected? Under the BC Wildlife Act, the Species at Risk Act, the Migratory Birds Convention Act, or all of the above? What do people think?
All of the above.
That's right. They're protected under all of these acts. Okay, next question. Do great blue herons migrate?
No.
Some do, some don't.
Okay, everybody's right so far. But
All of the above.
the answer is they disperse, but our subspecies actually do not migrate. Some of these other subspecies from the interior will migrate, but our subspecies don't. So they make small scale movements north or south. And there have been some university students who studied the movements of the fledglings and found that they also just move around locally. Do the herons use the same nests each year? What do you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that they do, huh?
I'd say no.
Okay, there we go. Well, most herons likely change nests each year and often change colonies year to year as well. Adult herons are known to return to nest in the same colony they were born in, but then the pair works together to fix up the existing nests, or they build new ones, and they continue to improve and maintain their nest through the season. So they are seasonally monogamous. And there have been times where this makes a lot of sense to me. Great blue herons are the top predator in the aquatic food web. They are a species of special concern here in the province. And what makes the Fanini subspecies unique? They have darker plumage, they're smaller in size, and they have a smaller clutch size of 3 to 4 eggs than the continental herons. So the eggs are laid one at a time, and this is called asynchronous and results in different sized chicks and a pecking order. And by the way, if anybody has any questions or, just go ahead and ask them. I mean, just interrupt if you feel like it. Jim interrupts me all the time, so it'll make me feel right at home. So just go ahead and ask away if there's something you'd like to know.
I resemble that comment.
All right. This is the last thing a fish sees. I really like this photo of these. They do actually have these downward facing eyes. And if you can see my cursor, so this is called powder down. Great blue herons have specialized feathers on the chest that continually grow and fray. The herons comb this powder down with a fringed claw on their middle toes, using the down like a washcloth to remove fish slime and other oils from their feathers as they preen. They apply the powder to their underparts and it protects their feathers against slime and oil. Jim and I first got involved through the South Coast Conservation Project. And we've been monitoring and collecting data in Port Moody Colony since 2015 for Environment Canada. So what we do is we track all the data and we submit it when all the birds have fledged. The males arrive first in the colony around the middle to the end of February. We start seeing them. They're not close to the nest, but they're kind of in the periphery of the colony. And when the females arrive, they start to flirt with each other. And then the nest building and the reconstruction starts. Initially, it's really hard to keep track of how many nests there are because they tend to steal sticks from each other's nests. And I can understand that because it's a lot easier to steal sticks that are already there rather than going to and finding your own sticks. And the juveniles can also be a nuisance because they fly in and they take sticks from nests to practice their own nest building skills. So, another thing we watched this spring was a raven that showed up and slowly pick apart one of the nests over a 2-day period. At first we thought, well, maybe he's just taking the sticks or she, for their own nest, but that actually wasn't the case. This heron just stood on a branch and slowly picked the nest apart and dropped all the eggs on, or dropped all the sticks on the ground. And so between April 3rd and the 15th, the herons built 7 new nests. And we now have in total 19 nests, all either incubating or some with chicks. So we've got at least three with chicks that are about 2 weeks old. Now, if you see a great blue heron flying in with a stick, that's a male. He'll gently hand the stick that he's just spent about 10 or 15 minutes picking out, the perfect one to the female, and then she'll take it and she decides if it's acceptable. If it isn't to her satisfaction, she will unceremoniously drop it over the edge of the nest. And then he sort of, goes, oh, good grief. And away he goes again to find another perfect stick. So it's quite a process watching them. And then about that time, we start to watch for mating because then we know that it's going to be 10 to 12 days before the eggs are laid. And after that, the incubation is 28 days. Both the males and the females have brood patches. Generally, the males take the day shifts of incubating and the females the night shifts. So another advantage for the fledglings is that herons can double or triple clutch, and which means, of course, they lay another round of eggs. And we've seen this when there have been a more than average eagle predation going on. And then after that, it takes about 2 months for the chicks to finally fledge and leave the colony.
What does the male do at night? Does he still
Good question. I've got a couple of slides, or actually I've got one slide coming up, a video about that. So your
Oh.
question will get answered just
Oh, good.
in
Thank you.
the course of this presentation, and that's a good question. Now, these the fledgling process can be very hair-raising because sometimes they fall out of the nest, and then we try and catch them and take them to wildlife rescue. So this is one of our catching teams one year. Over the years, we've rescued 3 birds. The city has rescued 1. And the Port Moody police kindly responded to a late night call over on San Remo Drive. And they took a young fledgling out that had fallen out of the nest, out to a veterinarian in Langley until the bird could be transferred to wildlife rescue the next day, which we thought was very generous of them.
It was the 24-hour emergency in Langley that he took it to. So,
Mhm.
and then it was transferred to Burnaby Lake.
Burnaby
the
there
next-
the next day.
Next day.
So herons won't ground feed the young, like crows or robins do. So we just do our best to get the juveniles to wildlife rescue. So the rescue part where you see me standing here with a sheet, the first thing, the birds are quite docile when they're on the ground. So when you're approaching them with a sheet, they actually just sort of lay down on the ground and close their eyes. It's sort of like a little kid closing their eye thinking, well, if I've got my eyes closed, you can't see me. And then the important thing, of course, with the herons is to get a hold of that beak right away. They have new protocols with handling herons at the wildlife rescues because there was a very unfortunate incident down in Texas at one of the rehabs where one of the volunteers lost an eye.
Ooh.
Heron beak.
Oh, my.
Yeah, so and the city wrapped the trees with tin predator guards when we requested them to keep the rats and raccoons out of the nests. So that was quite a bit of work. And they also, those predator guards, not only to keep the rats and raccoons out of the nest, but they also tend to keep the overly enthusiastic potential BMN members on the ground where they belong. Now there's a new hypothesis. It's called the predator protection hypothesis. It is believed that herons purposely nest close to eagles, as eagles are very territorial and will chase off other predators. So the eagle is the #1 predator of the heron, and the herons may lose some of their young to the neighboring eagles, but the carnage would be much worse without their protection. And yeah, it's very interesting. They're just observing this more and also starting to discuss about there's benefits depending on the distance between the eagle nest and the heron colony. So if the distance is further than 750 meters away, the protection from the eagle might be lost. But again, this is just sort of in the discussion phase.
And in one case, they discovered on the island where an eagle's nest had fallen to the ground and crashed to the ground, and the eagle moved to find another nesting area, and the blue herons followed him and built a colony close to where the bald eagle built the new nest.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So our timeline here in Port Moody, and we started in 2015 with 3 nests. And then in 2016 went to 9 nests with the pairs. 2017, we had 19 nests. And 2018 was a really good year. We had 21 nests and 24 juveniles fledged. That year, though, we did have 2 adult eagles that were predating, and that left close to 5 dead juveniles that we found. So that there may have
A
yeah.
question for you. Is there an eagle's nest somewhere in the Port Moody area?
Yeah, there was, we had one directly across the inlet, and that was the one that had the 2 adults in it. We have one down near PCT. If you know where that is, it's on the, what is it, the south
Yeah, it's right,
west.
when you drive up to the PCT area, right to their gate their security gate, there's an office there, and it's a security office. So a guy will come out and ask you what your business is before he'll allow you on the property. If you look straight up above that office, there's a huge bald eagle's nest there. And that is the only bald eagle's nest that we have in that end of the inlet. So they keep other bald eagles from nesting in that area. So I think the next closest one would probably be up in Belcarra or someplace.
Yeah, and we have, the one we're having trouble with this year is a juvenile
3-year-old.
3-year-old who last year, it was interesting watching this juvenile because he seemed to get really confused when he came into the colony. So when they come into the colony, they're usually followed by about 25 crows who hate them because they also predate crows' eggs. So they're getting, and then the herons are making a bunch of noise. And so this juvenile last year would land in the colony, but then seemed to get overwhelmed by all the commotion and leave. But this year, he or she is starting to do a bit more damage. So here are some of our juveniles this is from last year, just waiting for dinner to show up. And so now this year we had the chicks hatching on April 29th, and last year was April 26th.
Can you see them hatch from the ground?
No, we can't. We don't have that kind of vantage point, so we have to listen for the sound. So when they hatch, the chicks have a very distinctive sound, and that's what we start listening for.
I see.
Yeah. Now, in 2019, we had so many birds that they split into 2 colonies. There were 15 nests along the shoreline and then 12 nests above Ioko Road to the north up in conifers, which is a bit unusual. But the entire colony abandoned on June 7th and June 8th due to repeated eagle attacks. And that year we could only count 5 successful fledges. In 2020, we weren't sure they would even come back after what happened that previous year, but they did, fortunately. And now since then, they've never gone back to the upper colony. And then in 2020, we had 16 successful fledges, including a surprising situation where a nest fell out of one of the trees that had 3 juveniles in it. So 2 of the juveniles died when the nest crashed, but one remained up in the tree on a branch, and the parents kept feeding it, even though there was no longer a nest. And that bird actually successfully fledged by July 24th. In 2021 was another quite a year. It was quite a year. There were 33 successful fledges, and this is probably because of that fairly incompetent juvenile eagle who seemed to get confused and bewildered by all the screeching herons and the combatant crows each time he landed in the colony. So he never lasted long enough to do much damage. And herons have a hard time defending against a 20-pound eagle when they only weigh 5 to 6 pounds, but they do their best. And on May 21st, Jeff Rudd invited us to take a look at some heron nests on Maple Creek. But when we got there, we found an eagle sitting in a nest and no heron activity. We went back the next day to check and found all the nests were empty and a dead fledgling on the ground. But 7 days later, we noticed some new herons building nests in our colony. And by May 30th, we had 3 brand new nests built and occupied. Although we don't know if this was a coincidence or not, we think it may have been the displaced birds from Maple Creek.
We called them Jeff's herons.
We called them Jeff's.
Fantastic.
And then the heat dome hit on June 25th, and it reached 38 degrees on Friday, and the heat did not break until the following Tuesday. This was the worst, most worrisome event we have ever been through with this colony. Although most of the nests were shaded, the top ones only had intermittent shade, and the chicks are only hydrated through their feedings, which kept the parents making steady trips back and forth with food. I can't tell you what an awful feeling this was watching it. And I think if it had gone more than 1 day longer, we would have had fatalities in that colony. So I'm about to show you a video. This is a way that the heron, and we saw this with all the herons during the heat dome. It's called gular fluttering. It's actually not panting by definition, but the gular fluttering is working their neck muscles, and it promotes heat loss. And then they also drop their wings to allow air to circulate around their body. I just have to come out and get to the next video, get it on full screen again. So this is last year that we also had a one fledgling who spent 18 days on the ground before getting the wing strength to fly. This bird, I don't know how this bird did it, but he managed to eat enough at the pond under the colony and avoid predators. And I would sometimes find him on the main trail, and I'd have to try and herd him around to keep him off the main walking trails. So this is a video of my attempts to keep this bird in a sort of a safe spot. That's a good bird. There you go. There, down that path. That's good. Keep walking. No, the other way. Oh, darn. A video of him. And he's been on the ground for 2 weeks. So there you go. Minding his way slowly. There you go. There you go, down to the, there you go. That's a good bird. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. There. Come on. Keep going. There. See? There. There. Good. So there may have been a few motivating factors to enable his ability to fly, including me. Now, there was a question before about what the males or actually any of the herons might do at night. And we did not realize how much hunting they do at night until we started seeing herons on our wildlife cameras in various parts of Port Moody. This is on Suderbrook Creek, and it was at 11 o'clock at night, but we have video of them at 3 in the morning, at 2 in the morning. So we just didn't know that they would be this active at night.
They never sleep.
I don't know if they, you're right, I don't know if they do or not. And this is another video. I'll get it on full screen. So I created this video from our wildlife camera footage on the beaver pond at Cedarburg Creek. So as you're watching this, at one point, notice, pardon? Oh, at one point, notice there's swirling water going past the heron. That is actually 2 river otters swimming right underneath them. And after that, there's a funny moment when a bubble breaks near the surface behind the heron, and he has a reaction to that. And right at the very end, he catches a sculpin. So when I start this, the music is kind of loud, so just don't be startled by the music. Okay, the next video is on, yeah, this is also on the beaver pond at Cedarburg Creek, and you get to meet Clarence. Clarence is a nifty little signal crayfish we met a few times and thought that he or she deserved a name, so we came up with Clarence. I'm going to get full screen and then. Kingfisher fishing in Cedarburg Creek. And I'll let you read this. This is a difference in how, so say for an example, why Canada geese who lay energy-rich eggs, when the chicks hatch, they're pretty much ready to go. And then the next slide is a picture of the inside of a heron's nest. And the only way that we got to see this was a small tree fell over in 2018 after the young had fledged. And the cup is really tiny. It's about the size of, if I put my two hands together, that's the size of the cup where the eggs are, and it's lined with very soft material. So the structure, the engineering feat of the nests is kind of amazing to us. And that's it. There, and I'll stop sharing.
Thanks very much, Judy. I really enjoyed that.
Did anybody have any questions or things that came up that kind of tweaked the question?
I'd just like to mention that, when we go to these areas during the day and we don't spend a lot of time, it's amazing the different wildlife that you come through those areas.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So many. Yeah. I'm curious, the cameras, is it your own personal cameras installed there, or is it a collaboration with the city?
No, we have our own. The city camera isn't very good, so we bought our own. We have two of our own wildlife cameras, and then we have an underwater GoPro. So I've made a lot of videos. Actually, I have my own YouTube channel, and I've put a lot of videos on it. A lot of, especially during fish spawning season, and have some really beautiful underwater images of the fish spawning and laying eggs, and then and our wildlife cameras, we have had bears come right up to the camera, and so there's amazing how much activity is going on during the day and at night.
And we also have a GoPro underwater camera, and we use that mostly to begin with. When we were monitoring the salmon spawning in Cedarbrooke, and then we would check out the redds for where the eggs were laid and that kind of thing. And then it just came upon, we found some fish one day. It was in the summertime. We found these small fry swimming so we filmed them, and then we sent the film to a professor at BCIT, and he got back to us right away, and he said, "You've got cohos spawning or wintering in the creek." So that means that the coho, they always spend 12 months in fresh water before they return out to the ocean. So that's the little fry. So we had wintering fry there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the wildlife camera has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. We even have hippopotamus.
Even
Yeah.
who knew?
Who knew?
That was at night. Hippopotamus
They're
are
nocturnal.
Yeah.
In case you didn't know.
Yeah.
That was a pygmy one, I guess.
Yes. He was a
Yeah.
pygmy one.
Yeah.
We discovered at Colony Farm when we were cleaning out the nest box. I don't know if you remember, Ian, that the herons eat the crayfish,
Yeah.
but they can't digest the claw.
Oh,
And what is it when the herons have a furball
Pellets.
pellet? Yeah, they were underneath the nest box, and there was full of hair from the voles, they couldn't digest. And the claw from the crayfish was bright pink. It'd obviously been cooked in this digestive system.
Yeah, we didn't know what they were.
No,
Hmm.
until we took it apart.
Yeah, I think it was, well, we guessed it might have been from the herons, but we weren't sure. We thought it might have been from an owl or something. And
Yeah.
then I think it was later on when someone looked it up, once they got home, it was for sure what it was.
Well, that's the heron. They eat seafood at different times of the year, and then in the winter they'll move out into the farmland. I've seen when I was at work on the railway, we used to see great blue herons out in the cranberry fields and the blueberry fields, and they'd be eating rodents and mice and rats and all kinds of things out there. So
No
Yeah.
berries?
not in the winter.
I don't think they eat berries that I know of. But
They eat berries?
I don't know.
I don't know. I've never seen them. I've only
Yeah.
seen them with, aquatic things
Fisher.
or
Yeah,
small mammals,
yeah.
anything. We've watched them get stuck with a fish that was too big, and oh my goodness, it took a long time to wiggle down.
Oh,
Yuck.
Finally got it all down.
Finally
though.
got it all down.
Yeah.
somebody in the chat was asking for a link to your YouTube channel. I don't know.
Yeah. How did they get my YouTube channel?
You could put it in the chat
Yeah.
if you're able to.
If I'm able to do that. Oh,
But one thing about the herons that I heard this quite a while ago was that in the first few years, like the juvenile herons, they mainly forage for food in the fields. That's why colony farm was so important. It wasn't until they were a few years old that they could go out to the water and feed, because it was a lot more difficult to feed on critters in the water than it was on land.
So is it what that the young one for 18 days? 8? The rodent.
the what?
What was that, Catherine?
What was that, Catherine?
Yeah, the one that was stuck 18 days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were really worried about that because he was agile, or she was agile enough that we couldn't catch her. And so we started checking around with some of the experts, and they have been on the ground as long as 3 weeks before, before they've been able to fly.
Mhm.
But again, it's just a matter of, are they going to get predated while they're on the ground? So I don't know how this fell, because we have coyotes and bobcats around in that area, and this guy managed to just, I think he was able to, he could kind of flutter up enough to get himself up on a, like a
Branch,
6-foot branch
Mm.
to
Yeah.
kind of get away from things. And then the day that I'm just thinking now, because it was 18 days. So on day 17, one of my friends saw him do a short flight, like about a length of a football field. So we thought, aha, great, pretty soon we'll have a full launch. And then the next day he was able to fly. So yeah, it was a long time.
I mentioned it to Liz. I said, Liz, what do you think the problem is with this bird not flying? She said, she didn't miss a beat. She said, oh yeah, that bird's too fat to fly. And because there's so much food in that pond, like I watched him one day for about an hour and a half, and it was one after the other, northwestern salamanders, you name it. He or she was feeding on it. And so I sat there and I watched it, and I couldn't disagree. He was eating really, really well there. Yeah. But anyway, did you get that?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of going to YouTube and then putting my name in. So I'll just
What is your background? You seem to obviously know what you're doing.
Oh, no, we don't. No.
We're
Don't
just
make that assumption.
Citizen science. That's it. Yeah, we're self-trained. We lived in Jasper National Park for Judy was there for 33 years and I was there for 25 years. And we are founding members of the Jasper Environmental Association. And we worked with Parks Canada on some different things. And we also got CN Rail to start cleaning up the mess they were making on the rails with grain being dropped from the cars and then animals eating the grain and then getting hit by trains and things. So it was a mortality that was happening there that we were trying to stop and encourage CN. And they ended up going out and buying a vacuum truck. So when the piles of grain were there, they'd go out with a vacuum truck and suck up all the grain before the animals could start feeding on the grain, and then they would avoid getting hit by the trains. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that, and then we moved here in 2008, and we've been busy doing.
Yeah.
Well, we've been involved quite a bit with Burke Mountain Naturalists and John and Christina and everybody. So yeah.
Great. And in the chat, there's quite a few people that really enjoyed the presentation.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah, it's fun watching we've gotten really attached to the herons. They're really intriguing, and it's been fun watching them every year. They're really good parents. They're very attentive to the offspring, and you know, I mean, again, this year we've got that one eagle predating, so we hope that it doesn't get too bad. You know,
It's growing. The colony is getting really grown in right now. So if you're on the Shoreline Trail, I'm sure Carol, you can attest to this, is that it's getting hard to see some of the nests.
Yeah, I was down there this morning. I could hardly see anything.
Yeah, that's good. So the leaves have really taken over there, and it's gonna make.
Is there a pileated in the area? Because we could hear something.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like-
There's.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've seen. Saw one on the Shoreline Trail there about a week ago.
Yeah, but it was right in the heron colony. We could hear it.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got nesting crows in there too, right underneath the colony. Well, I hope not right underneath, because there's lots of things that would get dropped on them if they were there.
Yeah,
But-
they were.
But anyway, I've noticed that there's crows flying into some of the western red cedar there, and another one up another cottonwood where there's crows are nesting there too. So it's nice to see the crows in there, because they help with to stop the eagle predation and that kind of thing. So it's good to have a little colony. And this year I counted the other day 32 band-tailed pigeons just on the other side of the trail on the foreshore, right opposite the heron colony. Carol, if you're down there, if you go to that observation deck, if you walk out onto the observation deck and then look immediately to the east and look up in the trees there, you'll see them all. They got the really bright yellow legs that the band-tailed pigeon is noted for. There's quite a few of them this year. Yeah.
I'm going to go down and have a look.
Yeah. They're quite a large pigeon. Like you take compared to the pigeons that you'd see down at the pier or anywhere else, like the rock pigeon, they're probably a half a size larger than that. The band-tail, they're quite a nice looking bird.
Yeah.
It's nice to see they've made a big comeback on the inlet after being hunted to almost extinction, right?
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, even after the windstorm the other night, you know, we were a little worried about, because we have 2 new nests that just showed up in the last 2. One of them just
10 days,
10 days or so. And that windstorm the other night, so we thought, you know, what about these new nests? But when we went down, they were fine. I don't know how the heck they managed to anchor them so well, but they're pretty solid.
Yeah.
Do the park goers bother them?
No, actually, you know, people are really good about the herons. They especially the neighbors up on San Remo, and you know, and they're very tolerant, because those birds are so, when the chicks are growing, you know, after about a month, they are noisy and they start making a racket at 3 a.m. And it's, when you've got your windows open and it's hot, it is really noisy on San Remo. And, you know, I have to give those folks credit because they, you know, they put up with that for 2 months. But the only people we actually have to worry about are the city workers sometimes. So, you know, I mean, there's certain amount of work that they have to do, but because it's a species of special concern, they have buffer zones where you're not supposed to make noise. And sometimes the city workers need a little bit of a reminder depending on what equipment they're working with.
But
What
they're
about
using
the
that-
what
yeah.
about the new water main that they're going to be working on?
That's all. In fact, John, where's John? We all did a walkabout with the company that's going to be doing the work. And we did that last year or the year before. There you are, John. And yeah, they are very, excuse me, they're very aware of the buffer zone and
Okay.
have segmented their work schedule around
The nesting.
around the nesting. And then the only other thing, we go down all the time on the July 1st to make sure that there's not kids setting fireworks
Right.
around there because they, you know, they tend to party out on the old mill site.
Yeah.
And so this year we're going to ask for more support from city bylaw down there. You know, when the kids are down there drinking on, I'm
They
getting
got
a,
open fires
yeah,
and stuff.
so we'll
Yeah.
need some reinforcements down there on the 1st
Yeah.
of July.
Yeah. At least it hasn't been hot enough for them to be down there
Yeah.
Right,
up to now.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how-
After the nesting season, where do the great blue heron disperse to?
Out to the farmers' fields and around, you know, it's sort of it's more of a localized movement, sort of north and south. If it gets really, really cold, if we got they would maybe go down the coast a little bit. But generally this is the Fanini subspecies, you know, just the ones that are on the coast. So they tend to stay around. We see them. We don't see as many, of course. We have, you know, we'll see maybe a handful that stick around in the inlet.
Yeah, we'll
During
see
the
some,
winter.
we'll see them up at
And then-
Woodhaven and that.
Yeah,
that
we'll see
too.
them, you know, kind of around. And then they'll start moving in again. We start looking for them about the second week of February to come start kind of getting closer to the colony. And then,
There used to be a big colony out on the dikes in Maple Ridge, you know, at the, what's its name's park where you can walk along the dikes.
The Alouette River.
Thank you. Yes. And it was huge. And then all of a sudden, nothing. They never reappeared.
There is still a colony on the Alouette River.
Whereabouts are you?
Well, I was just trying to think that I think it was Larry was pointing it out at the last BMN meeting of where the colony was, and it's along.
Oh, right.
oh,
yeah.
that's
I
right.
remember,
Yeah, I
I
remember
that.
him describing that.
Yeah, I can't. I don't want to misguide you and tell you different roads because I'm not sure which ones it
Yeah.
was near.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we lost the one down at Colony Farm at
Yeah.
the mouth of the river.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
we-
mean, one day I counted 74
Oh,
yeah,
Yes.
just before nesting.
yeah.
yeah.
Question that I do notice from the colony that Carol was talking about, that how do you find the nests survive the winter, or do they fall apart quite a bit during the winter?
They don't fall apart that we notice. They just get picked apart in the spring. So they are actually really durable, even when there's snow and storms. That's what's so surprising about them, because when you watch them building the nest, they just look like they're they don't know what
Yeah,
they're doing.
they're
and
almost
you're just like-
transparent.
Yeah, it's just this kind of this jumble of sticks. And you're thinking, oh, this is never gonna last. And then, but they do, they last all winter. And again, that's what gets tricky about, you know, like this year we started out with 9 nests. And then all of a sudden we had 12.
For a
And
long
then
time.
for
we
a
had
long
to-
time,
yeah.
and then it dropped down again to 9 or 10. And then finally, you know, all of a sudden, there's just all this nest building going on once they get paired up.
Yeah.
And like I say, there were 7 new nests within a 10-day period, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah, it was
So we got
crazy.
19 there now.
So now there's the 19 nests there, and that'll be it for the season. They're all active and they're all being incubated, you know, except for the ones that have already hatched. And so, so that's a pretty good start to the season. And then, you know, unless a tree actually falls over, that seems, you know, like that one nest that the tree actually fell over, but that doesn't, but the nests themselves don't seem to, you know, deteriorate or fall out of the tree.
Well,
of the
we had
trees that
we
we've
had
seen,
just the
except
one,
just
that one. Yeah, that
Yeah.
crashed.
It
That
must be
was a-
pretty strong because I've seen somewhere a picture of bears up in sitting in a heron nest. Did anybody see those pictures?
I think there was an eagle's nest.
Oh,
It was, yeah, that was on the island, that's silly. It was the cub that got stuck up there in the,
oh, there are a
Eagle's
couple of
nest.
them. There are a couple of bears up in some nests, and I
Yeah.
thought they're pretty strong.
Yeah, the one that we lost, it was like, and this is the problem where with the herons, they build in the black cottonwoods. And the nickname for the black cottonwoods are the widow makers, because they'll grow and all of a sudden a branch will just drop off. And this was the case with this one nest. All of a sudden one day the branch just let go and the birds fell.
Yeah.
Two of them died on impact, and then we had the one that managed to jump out of the nest, I guess,
Yeah.
before it went.
so if you want to see, you know, the Stanley Park Ecological Society has a webcam set up for that can actually look down into the heron colony at Stanley Park. And that's pretty interesting to watch what's going on there. That colony starts about 2 weeks before ours. So they're a little more along than we are. And then they monitor that colony from one of the high rises. So they have a really good vantage point, the group that does the monitoring from up in the, and so once in a while, one of the neighbors on San Remo Drive will let us up on their balcony. And then we actually can get a good view
Into the
into
nest.
the better view into the nest. But we can, you know, we can pretty much track what's going on, because when one of the parents is flying in with food, all the fledglings will stick their heads up. So then we can get a good head count, and you can hear them, and so it's not, even though you can't see into the nest, you can get a pretty good, you know, you can kind of get a pretty good idea of what's going on in the nest.
Do they ever band the herons?
I don't know.
Well, you know what happened, Carol, in 2016, Audubon had started asking people to discontinue banding.
Oh, okay.
Because of, they thought it was having too much of a detrimental effect on some of the birds.
Yeah.
And some, like, I think there's still like mist netting being done for some people that nest, that will band smaller birds like hummingbirds and that. But it's not recommended. Like, we used to band the purple martins at Rocky Point, and then in 2016 we were asked to stop doing that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had to discontinue that practice, and I think we'd gathered most of the information that we needed at the time anyway to monitor because they were a species of special concern at that time. I'm not sure the purple martin still is or not.
I don't know.
John,
do you know what
do you know whether the pumas are still species of special concern?
I think at this point, they're still trying to monitor them. They're not as much of a special concern. They've come back in better numbers thanks to efforts from Kyoshi and others. And also, you're right about they've stopped banding and capturing the purple martin anyways, but they're still banding small birds, certainly at Vark at Colony Farm. But I think they've discontinued banding. The only banding I've heard of recently was a special case for a rehabilitated sandhill crane in the Pitt Meadows area that they released after 3 months of rehabilitation and fixing a broken leg. And they actually, Burke Mountain Naturalist provided funding for the GPS unit that was put on the bird as well, Miles Lamont. And his name was Fraser, the birds. It was delightful to see him take his first few steps, and we didn't even know if it would fly after 3 months, and he just flew, and they've been tracking him ever since. So it still is done rarely, but I agree with Jim's point. They're concerned about incidental injury to birds, particularly bigger birds, because they're so powerful. They're hard to control. It's a big difference between controlling a great blue heron versus a chickadee. Although if a chickadee was the size of a great blue heron, you'd never deal with it at all.
And do you know how many great blue heron colonies there are in Metro Vancouver or the Lower Mainland?
There's the big one out at Tawasin. That's a major one.
It's hilarious to see the one at Tawasin because they're so adept at stealing sticks. Like the really smart great blue herons just wait for the others to fly off, and then they'll casually fly over. And one thing that always amazes me, and Judy pointed this out to me, is how can such a gangly big bird fly into a tree and build a nest to begin with? Like these are confined spaces. Oh, and by the way, if you want to raise fledglings, you want to be on the top bunk, not on the bottom, because the nests aren't, they're not water or guano proof. No. So I pity, I think, Judy, there was one that had 4 in a high rise situation. So the poor fledglings at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Well, my car got hit one day out at Debuvo Slough, and it got hit from the trunk right to the tip of the hood. It was terrible. I couldn't see out the windshield. Don Gillespie was cleaning it off for me because I couldn't see anything.
Oh, I have a funny story about when John reminded me, we have there's one big nest, and it's been there for ever since 2015, actually, and it's really productive. I don't know what it is about this nest, but every year they get at least 3 or 4 fledglings out of it. And last year they had 4. And, I mean, the nests are big, but when you have 4 fledglings, ready to start flying, these are, big adults, and all the size of the adults, and plus the 2 parents that are there. So one was when they start to learn how to fly, they're flapping their wings. It's called branching. So they kind of get out on the edge of a branch and they're flapping their wings and exercising like crazy. And then they'll do a short flight. So they'll do they'll do like this little circuit around the nest and come right back to the nest, or they'll launch themselves out, full of confidence and realize, this was a huge mistake, and then end up on a branch about 20 feet down. And then they're going, oh no, what the heck have I done? And they start looking back up at the nest. And Jim, you watched one day. It took half an hour, and slowly she managed to branch from branch to get back up in the nest. But anyway, and then when they finally do fly, they'll do a sort of a loop around and come back to the nest, and they'll do this a few times. And so last year we were watching the one nest, and it had 4 big birds, juveniles, ready to go. And you knew they were ready to go because they'd already done a few little circuits. And you could tell that they were overcrowded and they were sick of each other, and they're squawking at each other and maneuvering around, and so they all fledged. They all like did these preliminary flights within about 48 hours of each other. And then there was one day we came and they were gone in the morning. So we thought, okay, so they've gone.
Yeah.
Wow, they've actually gone. And then I came back. Did you come back with me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we both came back, and it was around 7 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
because we just wanted to see if they were going to come back to the nest by chance, or if they would just permanently leave. So we got there at 7 o'clock, and the four of them, who had seemed to be completely intolerant of each other up to that point, were all sitting. So four of them were sitting on the edge of the nest, all faced in together, with their heads almost touching.
Yeah.
And they were just sitting there quietly. And you could almost hear them thinking, like, can you believe what we just did? What an adventure we had.
Yeah.
And then when we came back the next morning, they were gone permanently, and they didn't come back to the nest. But they did come back for this one odd kind of reunion. And they were all just quietly sitting there with each other in commiserating. It almost, I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It was really something to watch it. And then the next day they were gone.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it.
There's a big colony out at on the Vedder River.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chilliwack one, is that the one?
Yeah, I've been out there. There's
Oh,
It's
96 nests there were,
Yeah.
and eagle's nest right in the middle.
oh,
But they actually have a building devoted to herons. I
yeah,
think
I've
they
heard
were,
they-
yeah.
I know.
And apparently there is another colony on the other side of the highway too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
we
also
always-
one in Point Roberts that I think has been reported up to 400 nests.
Oh, wow.
Well, there's one on the island, I think, has got 560 nests or something. On the island. Yeah, that's what
Wow.
Eric was
Good
saying.
heavens.
yeah.
Yeah, so there, if you go on Environment Canada, they, on their website, this is where we have to enter all of our information. Judy does it on a weekly basis, just an update as to how everything's progressing. And then it'll show you a map of the southern, western part of British Columbia with all of the different colonies and where they're being monitored, because there's 50 nests. So right behind City Hall in Burnaby at Deer Lake, there's 50 nests there in the trees, and I'm not sure but they have the people that monitor
being
that colony too. So yeah. So there's people like us that are monitoring all these different colonies. Yeah.
One of the things that's really limiting in terms of great blue herons and also raptors, particularly over the winter, a lot of people don't realize that their food sources are rather limited. They have plenty of food sources in the summer. And in the winter, one of the primary food sources are Townsend's voles, which are primarily found in estuary wetlands, but also old field habitat. And I know at Colony Farm, it's one of the last remnants of really large old field habitat. And it just speaks to the need for conservation. It's protecting the birds is one thing, but if we don't protect their habitat, then you end up losing the birds anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mortality rate for the juveniles is about 50% the first year.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, and you brought up a really good point, Judy. What's going to happen with climate change
Yeah.
with some of these species? And they're finding studies through UBC in songbirds is that they have a harder and harder time keeping the young hydrated, even in alpine areas now, because they strictly rely on food sources for hydration. And with the changing climate, you're finding insect blooms coming out much sooner than they have in the past. And the sooner they come out, the sooner they disappear. And they used to coincide quite nicely with fledgling season. So I'm really wondering, not only for songbirds, but as you pointed out, during heat dome spells, the most critical factor is keeping the birds hydrated because of the food source.
Yeah.
And that, I just wish there was something that we could do for the birds, and it must be very painful to see them suffering like that.
Yeah, I have these ridiculous, out of, crazy wishes that I could get, like by that Monday on that heat dome of the last summer. I was thinking, I wonder if the fire department would come over and just put their hose up on the, chute, because they shoot the arc of water up over the, I mean, it was just, of course that's never going to happen, but it was really awful watching this, because some of the top nests just didn't have any shade. And I don't know. Oh, well.
See, Ron Colson would have done that.
Yeah,
for
maybe
us.
the fire chief would have done it.
Well, I'm sure there might have been some BMN members that would have thrown water balloons up there, or get one of those super water guns.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll bring the meeting to a close if everybody's okay with that. So thanks so
Well
much,
done.
Jim and Judy. It was fabulous. People stuck around well after the 8 o'clock mark, and had a really good chat. So
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
fun.
This is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank
Good,
you.
great to see you, Martina.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
and
Thank
I don't. Oh, question? Yes. Brian, were you asking a question? No, I thought he was, but I was going to say about our upcoming meeting in June. It's in the newsletter, but I don't think it's on the website yet. But I should just check. It is on June 14th. Will be our BMN meeting, and it will be on microplastics.
Oh, wow.
So June
Okay.
14th.
That'll be good.
All right, everybody, have a great night.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Bye-bye.